So all these alphabet soup, bachelors in psychology, peer support specialists, comprehensive community support services. I had to look that up right before I come up here because I was like, I don't know. I signed up for a training and I was like, all right. I'm also a community health worker. Do I just click it? Yes? No? Worse? No? Do I click it? Is it the other way? There you go. All right. So we're going to start with land acknowledgement, land and labor acknowledgement, because if it wasn't for the stewards of this land, especially in Virginia and where I'm from, which is Albuquerque, New Mexico, I wouldn't be standing here if it wouldn't have been for their slavery, unpaid work. We would not be here. And so I want to give a profound thank you to our ancestors, especially recognizing that a lot of this violent impact that they had, gives us the opportunity to learn and sit here. And a lot of the privilege that we hold today is because of their sacrifices. Thank you. And in particular, I want to give a special honor to the missing and murdered Indigenous women. They are not as recognized, they're not as investigated as our counterparts, white women, are. And so we need to recognize that. And if it makes you uncomfortable listening to that, good, I'm glad. Also, and in particular, my people, the immigrants. We are here cleaning, we are here serving, we are here doing a lot of the unpaid and unrecognized labor that makes it possible for a lot of us to be sitting here and holding this power of privilege to listen to what I have to say. Sucks to be you. But I do want to say thank you to them, especially all those unrecognized workers that go behind the scenes that we don't tend to recognize and reach out and say a thank you. And so I had to go upstairs, do some tweaks to my presentation, and I found out, oh my God, I'm so great. I found out that this beautiful woman passed away like a couple hours ago, and she was one of the first women in New Mexico to embrace me and invite me to fellowship after my second NA meeting. Not my first, because the first one was kind of weird. I'm like, people are crazy, I'm not coming back. And then all of a sudden she was like, come eat with us. I was like, shit. And also she is a strong Chicana Latina woman who taught me by example of what it is to be living in your truth as a person in recovery, as a strong person connected to her roots. This is my altar, one of my spiritual practices of a smoke bath, and so I lit a couple of candles for her. My best friend, who you'll hear me speak about a little bit more as we move forward, she did a prayer and an offering right before I came on stage, and I'm like, girl, please tell me what to say and not to say, and maybe say it still what I'm not supposed to say, because we're gonna say it anyways. So I just wanted to say thank you to her. So I have to write like a disclosure every time I do a presentation, because this mouth gets me in trouble. So this is the nice way of what, the polished up version. But I do want to give you a fair warning. I have a horrible sense of humor, very sarcastic, very blunt. I call it like it is. I don't sugarcoat it. And yeah. And my Soul Circle people know that, right? Shout out to my Soul Circle people. Yeah, they're like, oh shit, here she comes again. So with that being said, please just be open to it. I'm sharing part of my experience. So don't be a judgmental asshole. There you go, right? Sorry. Anyways, I've got no shame at this point, right? And it's the whole call inside thing, you know, if it makes you uncomfortable, talk to your sponsor, talk to your therapist, right? Like, I ain't here to sugarcoat it. I'm gonna come and tell you how it is from my perspective. This is my experience as a 44-year-old, although I don't look it, totally catfishing you guys with my profile picture too, because I'm not blonde anymore. And so, you know, I'm just giving you a little slice of the life that I have lived in my experience through being in behavioral health and how it is not meant for me. So if you have a little bit more melanin in your skin, it's not for you. And we're gonna get to that. So take care of yourself, right? Go pee. First of all, does anybody know where New Mexico is? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, cool. You don't need a passport. B, we speak English there. And also, we are the forgotten middle children, or child, between Arizona and Texas. And I say the forgotten middle child, and not in a please move there kind of way, because we don't want you there. Go back to where you came from. We are extremely progressive there. We have an opportunity scholarship, which is freaking fantastic. If it's your first bachelor's or your first associate's, it's all paid for by the state. You have to be at a certain percentage, income percentage, and it has to be your first. I was gonna say something completely inappropriate. Don't egg me on, I see you over there. And so, you know, in the news, we get a lot of statistics, right? That like, oh, they're on like the 47th percentile of education. Little unknown fact, more than 47% of the state speak Spanish. So imagine going to school, learning 2 languages at the same time, and yet you are being tested as if you're a monolingual speaker. That was my experience growing up. I didn't learn English until I was 7, 8 years old. We were not allowed to speak Spanish or speak English at home. It was on novelas, you know, La Dueña over here. I'm not dramatic at all. I don't know where I learned that. And then in English at school, like, you know, if I brought home or brought a bean burrito with fresh tortillas for lunch, I'd get made fun of. And I'm like, you know what, I would kill to eat that right now, man. Whew, that sounds so good. We had it good. Anyway, so, you know, even though you hear all these negative statistics about New Mexico, we have one of the richest cultures that they are in the States. And do not eat Colorado chili, that one sucks. New Mexico's all the way. If you know, you know. All right, I had to do this for, I guess you guys do CEUs, whatever, so blah, 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 right? Let's move on. Anyways, all right. Okay, so who has some writing utensils or a paper, take out something to write with? Participation is optional, but I'm gonna judge you if you're not, and you're gonna offend me if you don't participate. Just kidding. If you know what the phrase is, don't tell your neighbor. I'm watching y'all, okay? So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes, and using your non-dominant hand, so that means if you're right-handed, use your left hand. If you don't know which hand is which, oh yeah, do the L for left, and then, anyways, I can't do gang signs here. So you're gonna write, ¿Dónde están los baños? 5 times with your non-dominant hand. Okay, now I'll give you about 5 minutes. Did I bring my phone? Okay, you got 5 minutes, all right. I'm like, if I get an inappropriate text. What's that? No, write in Spanish. Write in Spanish with the accents. I'm testing you all. 5 times. Should I count? Uno, dos. If you're uncomfortable, I'm glad. Hilda's stressing out over here. Your master's program depends on this. How dare you? Just kidding. How are we doing? Are we on 2, 3?
4.
Oh, overachievers over here.
Yes, but it doesn't look great, so.
Okay. I promise this will make sense. When, I don't know. But I promise you. What's that? 3 minutes? Oh, you guys are at 3-minute mark already. I mean, we could take longer, but then you guys don't get to hear me talk. All right, let's see. How are we doing? I know. Stressful, huh? See some of you guys having the sweat mustache. In the armpits. So much concentration. Is this how professors feel when they hand out a test? And I'm like, the power. Yeah. Oh, my shirt. Oh, absolutely. TikTok shop. Absolutely. Yeah. TikTok shop has a. Okay. How are we doing on time? Like a 10-second countdown? Okay. Your Medicaid's about to end, so you guys better. Yeah? Almost? I'm like, can I count backwards in Spanish? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Woo. Did anybody get 5 times? Oh, look at you guys, overachievers. Jeez. All right. I know. Okay, now you get to use your dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, use your right. If you're left-handed, use your toes. You're gonna write the same phrase. And you're gonna do it 3 times this time, because it's way too easy. No using ChatGPT for this one. I'm like, you guys don't need a full 5 minutes. You need like, what, 2 minutes? Not even, right? Okay. Raise your hand, whoever finishes. Cool. Like, overachievers over here. Nice. Okay. Why did I have you guys do that? So, this ties to recovery, believe it or not, right? So it's a really gentle but powerful reminder that recovery isn't easy. You don't always get it right on the first time. And when you're doing it in a different language, in a different culture, it ain't that easy. And it's not going to be. So when you're going to treatment or you're seeing people who don't look like you automatically think you're doing it wrong. I mean, there's no other way to put it, because right now the way behavioral health is set up is that the dominant culture is who gets the jobs, who are speaking that language, and everybody else, there's a reason we call them historically ignored, marginalized communities. They are not the dominant culture, although we are the global majority, but you know, shit happens. You know, and we're all capable of growth, right? I'm sure if a couple of you got like another 10 minutes or so, you'd probably be like, ooh, look at me writing cursive. Look at me writing with my toes. I can do this. But you need time, right? You need time. And you also have to know what you're writing about. Does anybody know what that phrase was? Yes. Where's the bathroom? It's there. You guys can go to Mexico now. All right. Okay. So why should you guys even care? First of all, thanks for sticking around. I'm sure some of you are falling asleep after lunch. Also, like, I do it, you know, Dr. Jane Brown this morning was asking, what is our why? And the thing is, I just like to light shit on fire. I love seeing things fall apart and then rebuilding it from scratch. And that is a lot of my purpose of what I do. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. I got generational trauma up to wazoo, right? Was it ACEs, adversary child experiences? Yeah, I test out of 100, right there. It's like the only test I get right. But it's also not culturally relevant. It doesn't take into account migration. It doesn't take into account the fear of authority. And not because we did something wrong, but because they're coming for us. And I talk a lot about this because I am an immigrant. Well, I'm a daughter of immigrants. And so I'm working on breaking generational cycles. I have 2 sons, which I force them to do Adidas tracksuits Christmas cards each year, because I'm way too cool for anything else. And then for my graduation, I was like, okay, we have to take professional pictures because we're really cool. So it looks like we're about to drop a SoundCloud album. And then those are my parents. I'm about 2, 3-ish. So they had been here about 5 years already in the States. And then that's my older brother. Now, I'm a total type B person. I made it to Paris randomly last summer to the Olympics. How does that happen? My best friend's boyfriend didn't get his passport in time, so I was like, yeah, screw it, let's go. Let's go to Paris. What do I have to do? Apparently I have children, but they don't know. So I saw these 2 guys with the Mexican flag in Paris, so I was all excited. So I'm gonna share a little bit of my story, and so that way you guys understand why my mom messed me up the way I did, right? It's always blame the mom, and I say that as a mom. So like I mentioned, my parents migrated to Albuquerque. They ran out of gas in Albuquerque. They're from Juarez, and then I always made fun of my dad. I was like, did you guys run out of gas? Like we couldn't make it to Colorado a little bit further? That's where the joke comes from, right? See? And he was like, no, your uncles were here. And I'm like, are you serious? Couldn't it have gone further where there's actual water? Because it's really dry out there. So I'm the second born child. I'm the forgotten middle child. Yeah, that's what happens when you neglect the middle child here. I end up speaking to a bunch of random people because I need validation and recognition. So like I mentioned earlier, I learned English about 7, 8 years old. And I took a class in my undergrad, and we were talking a lot about language trauma. I'm like, everything is a trauma, like bathroom trauma, everything, right? Which is funny, because like I remember being in a circle, we were outside, I was painfully shy, and I needed to ask to go to the restroom, but I didn't know how to say it in English, and so I ended up peeing myself. True story, like I kind of do that every time I laugh, but that's a whole different issue now. And so like when I was in that class, I was like, oh my God, I never tapped into that trauma before. And so I tried really hard to lose the accent. That's why I don't have it. I wish I sounded like Selma Hayek sometimes, but hablo el español igual y no tengo el acento. I don't have the accent in Spanish either. So then, of all the things my parents could have found, they found the Jehovah's Witness religion. Look, we're working on it, okay? We're working on the reprogramming. We're working on the letting go of a lot of the shame. But they found community, right? They found community, and that's the most important part. Also, I learned how to read, speak, and write Spanish, proper Spanish, because of the religion. So while, like I mentioned earlier, while I was attending school and learning English, I was also attending Bible study and book study and learning Spanish that way. So as much as I want to be that person that curses really fluently in Spanish, I'm not. So I'm like, querida Jehová, what is Jehovah's gonna say, right? It's just a weird thing. And during that time, like I share this openly, I was sexually abused by a family member. And so as you can imagine, I don't have a lot of memories. So my mom didn't find out until I was about 22, 23. And so that put a lot of strain in our family and separated us, right? Because we don't talk about that. Like, how dare you talk about the predator in your family because A, he's the favorite of grandma, and also, like, why didn't you say something, right? It's that shame and stigma that is placed on the child and not on the actual person. And so I talk a lot about it because I need to break that cycle. I need my cousins to know that I'm not the one at fault. It's you guys for inviting him over. Just kidding. I just did a whole cousin get together and I was like, the uncles and the aunts aren't invited. And if they are, you guys are excluded. So that was me putting up boundaries and they're like, oh my God, here comes Bossy Lily. There's a reason.
Yeah.
Anyways. So at 21, I had my first son. I'm telling you, men ruin everything in a sense, right? Yeah, so I met a guy, right? I thought I was in love, and then all of a sudden he's like, I don't think it's mine. And I was like, all right, peace out, dude. I ain't fighting you on that one. You ain't that rich, like for me to come after child support, so deuces. But then he left me a wonderful gift of lupus, right? With all this stress, and I mean, you could go through the whole genetics of like trauma and chronic illness and how it all manifests. I blame my mom. I'm just gonna be like, hija de la. And so at 24, I meet a husband, which is pretty cool because I have a husband and a boyfriend. If you know, you know. So anyway, some of these pictures, it's my wedding up there. This handsome dude in the middle is my paternal grandfather, Carlos Miranda. And then that's me and my cousin, and I'll share a little bit about her in a bit. And earlier I was telling one of the women outside, this is my maternal grandfather. So that's my grandma, his wife, my mom's mom. They're from this small little town in Mexico, and so they migrated up north to the border town of Juarez. And he worked in a dumpster. So he sorted a lot of trash. He was working out there in the field. One generation over, I'm here in Virginia presenting to you guys. What the fuck is that about, right? Like, you think about it, sorry for the cursing, but I'm like, whoa. I don't think he would have ever thought that one of his grandchildren would be talking about his story, about his life. He was also curandero, which I'll get into a little bit of that, more of a traditional healer. So the fact that it just took one generation for me to be able to be proud of my past and move forward, we don't recognize that in ourselves. We don't recognize that in these marginalized communities, right? We're just watching what they're doing right now and not the fact that they have resiliency. They have fought time and time again to be able to hold a position right here for the dominant culture to take them seriously. I also got addicted to pills. There we go. Anyways, so like I mentioned, I was diagnosed with lupus and I was in that great wave of pharmaceuticals, right? I had a total knee replacement at 25 and I'm walking to the orthopedic office and there's the sales rep with her little cart and I'm like, dude, can I get some? But it was back in like 2006, 2007, where pharmaceutical companies were just handing them out. You get a car, you get a prescription, whatever, right? So we're gonna fast forward to 2016, April of 2016. My husband passed away unexpectedly. We had been together for over 11 years. And the majority of that time, I was addicted to pills. It was our third partner in the relationship. I was able to go that long without moving to something harder because he controlled my pill intake. And so imagine being my pharmacist, my partner, my accountability person. It was like just a very unhealthy relationship. Unfortunately, he passed away, and man, I miss that man. It's been 9 years. He taught me how to grow up, right? Like we were young. He taught me how to love myself, which, by the way, he is the reason why I have the last name that I have, not because, my grandfather married a white woman. It was me who married a white dude. So it's Spurgeon, not Miranda. So I inherited that, which I won't be able to vote anytime soon because, anyways, that's a whole different topic, right? So in April 2016, passes away, and I share this not to boost or what's the word? Yeah, like whatever. The word is passing. Anyways, he left me with a life insurance check. So if anybody knows about active addiction and money, it is not a good combination. And so it was one of those that was like, the Chinese people really know how to get me, right? Because they were shipping me stuff that I shouldn't have been getting shipped. Once again, this was back in 2016. The DEA hadn't messed up my game yet. And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess I gotta go to rehab. So I ended up going to rehab. Has anybody heard of Malibu Passages? Yeah, well, I didn't go there because they never called me back. I did make it to Betty Ford because I was like, I'm gonna do it once and I'm gonna do it right. Little did I know, going to rehab in July in Palm Springs in 117 degree weather kind of sucks. I was sweating everywhere. I didn't know things could sweat. My armpit hair sweat. It was crazy. But I managed to completely detox. Like, I got off everything, and I was like, I'm gonna start from scratch. I don't need it. Thank you. Little did I know I need more medication than I actually am on. But I remember thinking, I only need the medical detox. I don't need anything else. Everything, all this 12-step stuff, BS on the walls, like, ew. You guys need more than that. Ew. Fun story. So I'm driving back because I had to come back to Albuquerque because my dad had a massive heart attack and he was on life support. And so my mom's like, mija, te tienes que regresar, tu papá no está bien. You need to come back, your dad's not doing so well. So I'm like, oh man, I was gonna stay there for 60 days, not 45, because rehab boyfriend was a little too nice to me. That is not the place to find love, even though they are taking the initiative to work on themselves. But no, that is not the place to go. And so I remember talking to him on the phone, and he was like, hey, I know it's your first time in recovery. Like, if you end up relapsing, it's okay. Like, you just get back to it. He said it in a very, I took it as condescending, but I think he was meaning well. And I was like, watch me. Watch me. I'm going to take over NA. Yeah. You know anything about 12-step? I made it to treasurer for 4 years, so that was as close as I took. But other than that, I was like, yeah. And so I have been abstinent from all mind-altering substances since July 5th. I was like, when was I? July 5th of 2016. I do want to say, you know, even though I have not used drugs, I have relapsed in emotional, spiritual, and every other kind of messed up way that you can think of. But I have not picked up the substance because I believe that, like, well, I can't access them anymore. Anyways, just can't like it. No, but like, I understand that sometimes we go back to familiar patterns. We go back to what we understand the best and what we feel comfortable in. And sometimes that looks as like being super mean to myself, mean to everyone around me. I'm not mean. I'm feisty. We'll just put that, I'm spicy, as we like to call it. We're spicy over here. So, like I said, moving forward and bypassing all the fuck-ups that I did. Don't ask me how many boyfriends I had, because that was a lot. Anyways, so once again, another awesome picture, and that's my family right there. That's my partner. Rocco is the left-hand side. Far right is my daughter-in-law, who is my favorite child. She answers the group chat and not the rest. And then Gaed, who is my oldest. And then that's Sushi, the Frenchie, who's like the cutest puppy in the world. And so, you know, you can read all this. I got ADHD, shocker, right? Who would have thought? My dad drank coffee right before going to bed and could build a house in 3 months, and nobody thought he had ADHD. Oh, what? Okay. It was the same thing with my mom. Anyway, so fast forward to all that, you know, right now I'm doing all this other stuff. And I do this to say, you know, a lot of what I do isn't to validate you all, because I don't know you. You ain't paying my bills. It's to validate the little girl inside me. The little girl who didn't know English until she was later, you know, going into 4th, 5th grade. The little girl that was told that she was reading below comprehensive level and that I shouldn't even think about college, that I should think about just being a housewife, right? Like, so I developed a drug addiction. Anyways, yeah. So I will expect a full APA citation on this, okay? Lilliana Spurgeon, 1L. So addiction does not discriminate, recovery does. And I want you guys to think about that. Like, why is that so true and why is it making you uncomfortable? And I want you to really sit with that because you know it's true. You know it's true. Take a look at the organizations that you're part of. Who has the power? Who's making the decisions? And who's doing the outreach? And are they all being compensated the same way? Probably not, right? The people who have a little bit more color to their skin, do they have the authority to make decisions? Can they suggest a new type of program without people saying, I don't think it's in the budget? How are you going to do that? Are you willing to take more responsibility? I'm just saying the truth. So, with that in mind, I came up with this cool theory. Just kidding. No, it's not mine. Has anybody heard of recovery capital? Does anybody use it in their assessments? Yeah. So for those that don't know, recovery capital is kind of an assessment. Well, it is an assessment, not kind of. It's an assessment. It ranges from 10 questions to, I think there's one of like 50 questions. And it takes a look at the person's capital strengths that they have that will make their recovery much more substantial, that will support it, right? And it focuses on the individual. It focuses on who is around them in order to support them. Now, in order to make that work, they have to be white, private insurance, and going back to a different culture or a different environment than the one they came from. So if you're not any of those, then you're SOL, right? So then this is where cultural capital comes in, and this is a critical race theory. Woo. Sorry, I had to say that. And so this takes a look at the community, and instead of looking at their deficits, it's looking at their strengths. Because when you look at somebody's deficits, I'm always gonna be 5 feet, right? I'm not gonna be tall like over here, ma'am, over here, Marie. Is that a deficit? Depends. If I push her, she'll probably tumble over, but if you push me, I'm, center of gravity down here, right? That's a strength, right? So it all depends on how you look at it and how you want to make it a strength and not something that they're lacking. Because no one in this world is lacking anything they were born with. And I'll say that again. I don't care if you have all the financial means in the world, you're still gonna lack some stuff that is given to you by societal norms, not because you were born without it. Everyone deserves freaking healthcare. Well, I'll get off of that one, because
So what is recovery capital, and how does it impact the recovery process? The term recovery capital comes from behavioral economics. Capital is a resource that we can draw on to support our recovery. So this can be personal resources, social resources, community resources, and it's this bi-reciprocal relationship. So here in this image, we see the relationship between remission and recovery capital. Okay, so as people get into remission, they start to accrue recovery capital. And also we can improve the likelihood that they get into and stay in remission by providing recovery capital on the front end, all right? Because if we provide more recovery capital, so more resources, so to speak, then we improve somebody's confidence that they can actually get better. And we know that the likelihood that somebody will get better if they don't believe that they can get better is very low. So to reduce that burden of biopsychosocial stress and to increase the likelihood of remission, we try to provide lots and lots of resources on the front end here, especially in that first year.
I learned by TikTok, so that's how I get my news. But I think it was a really good explanation as to what recovery culture is, right? It's very generic, very universal, cool, right? Like it kind of feels sin sazon, without flavor, kind of like, and it's a little bit more sugar to it, a little bit more jalapenos in there. And so here's an example of what the assessment would look like. So it's a brief assessment of recovery capital, and it's 10 questions, right? And so it's like, in general, I'm happy with my life. Who can 100% say that right now? Liars. Like, come on. Like, if you were truly happy with it, you wouldn't be trying to achieve more. But that's capitalism too, right there. So we'll just leave it at that. But it just kind of feels very superficial if you take a look at it, right? Like, if you want someone who has been around community, as myself, to really connect with recovery, you gotta dig deeper. You gotta go into even more. My recovery experience. I am making good progress on my recovery journey. And I say this because I love 12-step, but at the same time, when we go into 12-step meetings, we're comparing ourselves to how other people are doing recovery, right? We're comparing that somebody worked the 12 steps in a month, and you're like, dude, I haven't even bought the basic test. What are you talking about, right? And so then we start comparing, like, I'm not doing enough. And we're approaching our recovery through a very deficit-based approach. And that's not the greatest. I don't like being told I'm doing wrong, so in your feedback, you guys better not, because you're gonna hurt my feelings. And so these are some of the questions that it has. And so it like rates you, right? If like you strongly agree, strongly disagree, and then they you would develop a whole treatment plan based off of that. It seems like you can do this in like 5 minutes, right? And then be like, all right, see ya, I nos vemos, good luck. Sayonara. So, we can't talk about cultural wealth without talking about this. Because unlike others, we have a lot of generational trauma and oppression. And some people may say, just get over it. I wish I could. But when nothing is done specifically for me and not as an afterthought, that's kind of oppression. So a lot of this is based off of New Mexico, where I'm from. And so, some of this is like, okay, this is kind of weird. And at the same time, oh, damn, that was awesome. Yeah, I didn't even make it that far. I didn't even tell them what they were doing wrong. Yeah. Anyways, okay. And so a lot of this becomes trauma. And you may think like, oh, well, they gave their land, willingly. Yeah. So like the Mexican-American War, that is still very influential in New Mexico. We have a lot of, in New Mexico, where it's like, I'm not Mexican, I'm Spaniard. Okay, colonizer. Anyways, and so we get a lot of this separation. My partner's grandmother, she's from like southern New Mexico, and she's like, yeah, I used to tell people we were Native American, we weren't Mexicans, because being Mexican was something dirty, and it would, like, the repercussions became worse if we identify as Mexican and not Native American. Native Americans for a long time had a lot more rights than Mexicans did. And so I really do invite you to look at the historical trauma that you have in your surroundings, in your land. We can't just pretend that we're gonna build all these new resources, new agencies without addressing this. And I don't, some people are like, it's so political, oh my God. I'm sorry, I wish I could change history, but you can't. Because this is something that a lot of us carry. The fact that I was scared of immigration for as long as I could remember, not because I had something at fault, but because my parents put that in me, right? Because they couldn't really roam freely as they wished they could because of the fear of ICE. And so right now we see a lot of this economic inequality, land conflicts. If you are not aware of any land back movements in your community, you need to do research and you need to use your privilege to support them. Being an ally with privilege is so important, and we need that. And so of course we get a lot of this resistance. And so cultural trauma or cultural capital, and I'm gonna do this really quickly because I talked too much about myself, and now look at us, we're rushing through. So it's these 6 different pillars. And I love this. When I saw this, I was like, oh my God, it talks about me. So there's the aspirational capital. My parents came to the United States for the American dream. Little do they know it was capitalism, but all right, we came for the American dream, right? So we wanted to move forward. The fact that I'm one generation after my grandfather who worked at a dumpster, and I'm here presenting to Virginians, right? Like, what the? He would have been like, ¿Qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? He's passed, and I didn't meet him. So I'm sure he's proud. There's navigational capital. This is something that a lot of us take for granted. We know how to figure out systems, especially those that are not meant for us. How many people have gone as first-generation college degrees or graduates and figured out how to navigate the academic setting without any other support? Exactly. Give yourself some applause. because that is not easy, and that is navigational capital. We will figure it out. I figured out how to scam the MCOs, but that's a whole different story, right? But I used it for good. Not really. But I used it for me getting what I needed to get. Resistant capital. How is it that I'm standing up here talking about my Latinidad and resisting being into the dominant culture, right? Like, I'm proud of my heritage. I am wearing this cool shirt that I got from TikTok shop. Anyways, but I'm resisting, right? I'm resisting having to be this whitewashed version that other people expect me to be because I'm resisting it. And that's what a lot of our clients have. When you come in telling them how to do something, they are going to resist you. If you come in as a white clinician telling a black man how they should behave, good luck. Yeah, those are doing that. We have linguistic capital, right? Like, I speak Spanish. My boys don't, but that's a whole different story. But I learned 2 languages at a very young age. A lot of our kids learn different languages, and they pick it up quick. And so we're able to navigate both systems simultaneously. Social capital. Look, I'm an extrovert. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. Familiar capital. I mean, that in itself says it. And so, this is a little bit more explanation of it. Also, I really wanted to put that picture of that little girl because she's so cute, and I found her on Canva. And so, in a lot of my presentations, I put her in there, and I'm like, I hope wherever she's at, she knows that she's like the cutest thing ever. And so a lot of this is part of that community healing, community culture. And so there's a lot of intersectionalities that comes with it. Peer support is an indigenous practice. And if it's hard for you to believe that, sit with it. Because we come from a very collective communities, and we help each other. We are not based off of individualism. We are based off of community. If one person in our community is succeeding and achieving great things, it means all of us are doing that. And so that's where a lot of our peer-based support comes from. Oh, you need somebody to fix your toilet. The tío, the neighbor from down the street, llámale, call them, and they'll come and fix it, right? That's peer support. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Well, it's also a plumber, but, we need to learn and appreciate how we're reclaiming our identities, how we're refining recovery. Not everyone connects with 12-step. Cool, right? So how are you getting your spiritual practices in? How are you supporting your recovery? And so a lot of what we do in our community is storytelling. Now I'm gonna say this, and I say it with all the respect that it deserves. White people love to write shit down, right? White people love their words. Like, let's be real. There's the Bible. What research to recovery? It's all peer-reviewed articles, right? Now, when you come back to a collective community, you have songs, you have music, you have dance, you have drawings, you have colors that represent things. That is how we share our knowledge. That's how we pass down all this ancestral knowledge, not through words, but through actions. And so there's just different things that you can do that invite these different types of healing practices. So my best friend, my executive director, is a traditional folk healer, a curandera. And so that is someone who uses very ancestral beliefs herbs, stones. I don't know what the heck she does. Anyway, she's teaching me all this stuff, right? My grandfather was a curandero, and his family were curanderos, and so they spoke to their ancestors. They used the knowledge passed on by their ancestors to call on them, to connect with them. And that's part of my spiritual practice, is connecting with my ancestors. We do temazcales, which are sweat lodge. We do offerings, which are like altars, like I showed you. And it's a different approach to spirituality than it is a religious, organized religion type of practice. And we encourage that. Also, in the Soul Recovery Cafe, I was telling someone earlier that our approach is community healing through radical hospitality. We just like to eat. That's pretty much it. Like, we break bread every meeting, and we make sure, did you eat? Do you have something to drink? Go pee. All right, let's sit down. And that's how we connect. All right, I'm running out of time. See, this is why I'm such a talker. Okay, I'll send you guys all this stuff. Also, APA citation, representation without power is useless. So if you are going to add workforce development for marginalized recovery, lived experience people, make sure they have power. Make sure you give them a budget. Well, not really, but give them money to be able to propose different programming, different ways to approach their own community, because those in power don't necessarily know what's going on in the community. And so you need to give them the authority and the power to make decisions for their community, not what you think it is, not what academia told you. Some self-reflection. There you go. Well,
Yeah. So this is perfect.
there you go.
Yes.
Perfect. There you go.
Yes.
Now I'm gonna sit down.
Round of applause for you. We have some time. We do have like a few minutes for some questions. I don't know if there's anyone on Zoom that has any questions.
I'm looking at the. No. Poor dude. He's like, oh my God.
You guys can raise your hand if anyone has any
Yeah.
questions for Ms. Lily.
Raise your hand if I made you uncomfortable.
A wonderful person. This was an amazing presentation, and thank you for being authentic. I think the reason why we cannot go to the next level is because of the denial and facing the truth that people were villains, you know, and they oppressed the people, and now they think it's right, and we're the problems. It's time to come out of that, because that's the only way it's gonna be healed. I'm a direct person too. I never scared. I don't know what. So it's just. It's just sad. If we're gonna really hit this, then we have to be real that people's lives were impacted from theft, rape, murder, thievery, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you heal a land, not by being in denial. Okay, and another thing I want to ask is this: why do you think? Because this is what I really feel. Why do you think now all of a sudden heroin and fentanyl is an epidemic? It wasn't an epidemic in the 70s when it was hitting Harlem and the black communities. Okay,
Well,
so
John
we
and
just gotta be
Sally
real.
at the suburbs got addicted, so now there's an opioid response network and not a crack response network. Just saying.
Next question.
Either one. Be nice, Hilda.
Thank you so much, Lily. I appreciated your authenticity, and I resonate with everything you're saying as someone who's a first-generation American and college student. Something you said that really stuck with me was, like your parents came here to fulfill an American dream. I guess my question for you is, how do you navigate spaces while also being authentically yourself and in your culture? Like, how do you navigate that? What advice do you have for someone who's going into that field and it's brand new for them?
Wait, hold on, how do I sugarcoat it? In Spanish, we say, no soy monedita de oro. I'm not a gold coin, so I'm not gonna please everybody. So, As long as I'm making sure that I'm staying authentic to myself and my beliefs. I mean, y'all can have your opinions. Does it pay my bill? No. I mean, unless you guys don't invite me back, and then I have to figure it out. But like, I've been blackballed from behavioral health in certain spaces because I will be like, where is the Spanish programming? Where is the action to reach the Spanish-speaking community? And we're not an afterthought, we are before thought.
Yeah. We have time for one more question.
Sebastian,
You had his hand up.
you wanted to ask.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
All right, so my name is Sebastian. I'd like to point out the fact that I'm also part of the Latino community, and the title of this workshop is Healing Through Heritage, Addressing Addiction in Latin communities through cultural strengths, right? And I'd like to point out the fact that it is because of a person that is outgoing, out there, does not feel shame, right? We need those kinds of people to attack the stigma, right? I'm like that too. I'm out there and sometimes very annoying, right? Sometimes.
Are you calling me annoying?
No, me. But you remind me of my mom too, and she's kind of annoying, so, you know.
Best
So,
on the stage.
nah, but my question is, like, what should we individually in this room, not necessarily somebody with a Latin heritage, what should we do individually to attack the stigma, not just in the Latin community, but also the stigma in general?
In general?
Yeah.
We recover out loud. I mean, well, raise your hand how many Latinas in recovery you know. Yeah, that's what I thought. You can raise one. You can raise your hand and say one. Yeah, I mean, this is recovery from substance misuse, use, whatever the way you want to call it, is not very prominent in the Hispanic Latino community. And this is one of the reasons why I do it. Also, I like the attention. And also, like, my whole family gets really uncomfortable because they're like, oh my God, we can't drink around Lily. And I'm like, well, as long as you guys aren't drunk, I don't care. But even addressing it and being loud about it and being out front, nobody can come around and tell me I did something wrong. Because I'm like, this is my experience. This is how I recover. And this is for those little girls that, unfortunately, life is not going to hand them the most amazing life. And they're going to struggle. And they're going to have to deal with a lot of trauma. So I want them to know that there's hope.
Thank you so much. Round of applause. Yes.